So Dana White went on Instagram the other day and revealed majority of the fights in the summer. We've got a lot of fun fights. We got some fights that we've been looking forward to for months now. Um, but we finally got the announcement in some random hotel off on Instagram. Well, let's go through it. July 7th, UFC 316, New York card. Morale versus Sean O'Malley rematch. They are headlining. Morale working like he's the goat out bantamweight. Sean O'Malley trying to, you know, live up to the hype. The UFC really wants Sean O'Malley to be a champion. They really want him to be their star. And the problem with the stars of today is that the UFC are artificially trying to make them instead of letting it happen naturally, which with guys like Buckley, guys who are good on the mic. Pena versus Harrison is a more interesting fight to me than the main event. Yeah, Batista returning against Marlon Vera needs a great performance after doing what he did to Aldo. Piper has a chance to be the decent name. We know Piper has been, he's an interesting case in the middleweight division. Really good power. Again, just outside the rankings, I do believe. Luque either beats Holland or I want him to retire. Silva versus Van should be a fun fight. Both are 4-1 in the last five. Silva got killed by Cope recently, and Van got killed by Charles Johnson in late July last year. Um, I don't really care about the bracket. I should have finished it. And then there's the Conor versus Rubio as well. A fun fight in the light heavyweight division. Where's the Conor? What's scary? So for Marab, if he wins, he pushes O'Malley out of title contention. Should be fighting Pantoja next. Should be fighting Pantoja. Period. But then the other fights from Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong, Figueredo. The only fight that I would honestly focus on if I was Moraldo would be a Corey and Figgy fight. You have Corey, a top five in this division for years. Figueredo, former champion, former flyweight champion. And 145 is not a far stretch from Moraldo Bomashvili. If Aljo is okay with it, I don't think that Volkanovski will be up there by the time Marab moves up. Volk versus Marab will be one hell of a fight. But again, so would majority of the other fights at 145. Again, a division that is getting really good right now. Then you got Sean O'Malley. Hasn't fought since UFC 306. Has the UFC aggressively pushing him to be the guy? Well, I don't think he is the guy. I don't think the fans are going to get behind him the way that the UFC wants him to. He needs to focus on this division too. When he won the belt before, immediately after beating Aljamain Sterling, he was talking about featherweight. He was talking about Volkanovski. Only got one title defense. If he wins this, I want to see him at least defend it 3 times. Maybe move up on your second one. But when you lose the belt, I don't want to hear any kind of move up in division. Unless you're Pereira. Pereira is different. Pereira is a legitimate star. Pereira is a guy that the fans are actually going to pay to watch. Sean O'Malley, yeah, he had one of the biggest skates. Yeah, he had some of the biggest pay per views. But keep in mind, pay per views are nearly 20 bucks more than what they used to be. And ticket prices now, especially for the UFC 306, were fucking insane. We move on to the co-main event, though. Juliana Pena coming out for a controversial win over Raquel Pennington. I thought Raquel won that fight. She beat Amanda Nunes by a second round and a choke, but Nunes was horrible in that fight, and then walked her in the rematch. Really wasn't competitive at all in that second fight. Okoye went over Kayla could change that though. I feel like if she can beat Kayla Harrison, it will be another big name on her record, and with a clear finish, or a clear decision win. You have a very interesting fighter in Pena, who maybe is starting her own run at the bantamweight division. There's no way she's gonna catch up to Nunes. I don't think anybody will be catching up to Nunes anytime soon. Not even Kayla Harrison. And mainly that's because Kayla does not have age on her side. And Amanda Nunes probably stays in retirement following Pena winning and defending the belt. Kayla Harrison, on the other hand, had an incredible success in the PFL, only losing to Larissa Pacheco by unanimous decision. She submitted a former champion in Holly Holm in her debut way back in April last year. Her only loss is to Larissa Pacheco, who is a beast over at the PFL, and she can get Nunes to return. I don't think Nunes will. I don't think it's very likely that Nunes will see Pena winning, but all right, then come back to get my belt off of a girl that I just dominated in the second fight. But I'm probably gonna end up going with Kayla. It is a really close fight though. It's a much closer fight than I think people realize. Uh, and honestly, the co-main event to me is more interesting than Sean O'Malley fighting Marab after a year of being inactive. Then we move on to other interesting fights. Mirzakana 14-0 taking on Ribeiro on a 2-fight win streak. This is a fun fight in the light heavyweight division. I believe Mirzakana is an issue for everybody in light heavyweight. And if you can break into the rankings, he will cause equal cause chaos in that division. Really good grappler, really good power. Sergey Spivak, 17-5, 2-2 in his last four, versus Walter Cortez Acosta was 13-1. I'm blanking on who he lost to, but I'm pretty sure it was the guy who's at the top of the heavyweight division. And then you have Joshua Van versus Bruno Silva. You guys know I'm a major Joshua Van fan. He's been on an incredible win streak ever since getting knocked out by Charles Jourdain, I believe. And then Bruno Silva kind of the same thing. 4-1, got knocked out by Manel Cobb. Really close fight, exact same record. I really hope that Van wins. Nothing against Silva, I just really like Van. Then we move on to UFC Fight Night at Atlanta the next week on June 14th. Usman versus Buckley. Usman versus Buckley decides the title contender. We all know that, but the welterweight division right now is the best division. We got Sean Brady. We got um, Bilal Muhammad, who just lost the belt. JDM, who just won the belt. Ian Gary. I'm pretty sure like the top eight of this division is one of the scariest topics we've seen since like light heavyweight back in the day when you had Jones, DC, Gustafson, Rumble Johnson, all of those guys. Miranda Maverick has a lot of hype around her, only losing to Jazz Vicious. If she's able to beat a former champion, it really help her out. Um, Early on into her career too. Miranda Maverick will be around in the UFC, I feel, for quite some time. And then we got two fun veteran fights between Michael Chiesa and Troy McGee. I don't know why I wrote it twice. And Cody Garbrandt versus Leone Barcelo. Um, yeah. Then you look at Kamaru Usman coming back from his loss to Khamzat all the way back in October 21st, 2023. That was at an Abu Dhabi card on 9 days' notice, but he still did really good in that fight. even at one of the judges giving him the nod. Um, he got KO'd in the second fight against Edwards, where he was winning that fight 4-0, at best 3-1, and then he loses a majority decision in the rubber match. Steps in against Khamzat on 9 days' notice. Has a close fight. He's looking to get back in the title picture. We all know Kamal Usman won the belt off of Tyrone Woodley, who was looking like he was on track to reaching GSP. And then Kamal Usman was able to beat Colby Coy's forehead twice. He beat Gilbert Burns by knockout, but ultimately we got him. He wants to get back in that title picture though, 170. He's on his last run. I feel like if he does lose this fight, he will retire. That'd be a 4 fight losing streak. We've seen so many people hold on for way too long, and I don't want to see Usman doing it. But Buckley showed a lot of holes in his grappling against Colby Covington that I feel Usman is very excited about. And Usman, in those situations, probably capitalizes much better than Colby did off of takedowns. I feel like he has better ground and pound. Um, Slightly better at finding submissions. Usman never really was a submission artist. He's never really gone for many of them. Um, but this is big. You guys know I'm a Buckley diehard. I think that Buckley is going to win that belt. I think him versus JDM will be one hell of a fight. Him versus Brady. Obviously, Buck versus Tuck with Ian Gary. Um, but yeah, you can never count on Kamal Usman. Again, did really well against Jamire on short notice. Then you go to Joaquin Buckley, undefeated at 170, 6 wins, 4 by TKO. Finished Colby Covington better than Kamal Usman did, and that's the MMA math and all of us. We look at the common opponents. If you got them out there quick, or if you dominated them better than your opponent did, basic MMA math, people are gonna pick you. He's quick. He has much cleaner striking than what Usman has shown. Usman really did improve under Trevor Whitman on the feet when you look at his earlier fights compared to um the Colby fight, especially the second Jorge fight where he knocked out Jorge. Usman has gotten better, but I think Buckley still has better striking. And he is tricky for most fighters to control. Walking Buckley kind of has a Kamal Usman build where he's very stocky, very bulky, and I feel like it's difficult for a lot of grapplers to get a hold of Buckley and control him, especially with this skill set that Buckley brings. But I think Buckley will get it done. I'm hoping by finish. I don't have anything against Usman. I really like Buckley. I think Buckley is one of the brightest stars in the UFC. Knows how to promote a fight. Knows how to put on a banger fight. When we move on to the co-main event, a Rose Namajunas 14-7, former strawweight champion. Her only losses are to Zhang Weili and other Taylor contenders. Aaron Blanchfield in their last fight, Manon Farrell, who just fought for the title. She lost to Cohen as far as a split decision to lose her belt. And she's fought most of these women multiple times, either being 1-1 uh, or 2-0. Rose Namajunas is a beast. She's a guaranteed Hall of Famer. Um, but okay. I'm gonna say a lot of things that are gonna piss people off. I think she beats Miranda Maverick. Miranda Maverick, she's on a really good run, beating Jamie Lynn Horth in the last fight, Dion Barboza, Andre Lee, submitted for skill Topuria, however you say it. She lost to Jasmine Vicious, though, who, again, Jasmine is a very bright fighter. Just had a really good one. I believe she's on like a 4 fight win streak. A win over a former champion, though, would put her name in the top of this division. I know that Rose Namajunas isn't ranked highly, but again, having that on your record, especially as a younger fighter, she's only 27, so she'll probably have a good 8 to 10 years in the UFC. Um, but this is gonna be interesting. I may eat my words. I kind of think that Rose is gonna win this. I'm not on the Miranda Maverick hype train just yet. Maybe this fight can do it for me though. Then other interesting fights on the card: Manifield versus Umar Sai. Manifield kind of a win lose one fighter as of recently. 3-2 in his last fight. Omar Sai, 11-0, 4 KOs, 4 subs, coming into the UFC. Looks like a beast. Again, can he translate in the UFC? That's the biggest question we have. Um, with these undefeated guys who come into the UFC, or guys who come in off of incredible runs in other organizations. UFC is different, man. Edwin Shabazian, 14-5, 3-2 in his last five. Edwin Shabazian, when he came into the UFC, was a big deal. A lot of people had their eyes on him. He was a really big prospect. But then he just got figured out on the feet. Uh, People were able to keep up with him in the grappling department. I really want Shabazian to rebound and show the promise that he had coming into the UFC. He's going against Arman Petroski, though, who's also 3-2 in his last five. A bit like Shabazian, except I'm pretty sure Petroski came in after Shabazian. I could be wrong. Two guys the UFC had a lot of promise in, and they weren't able to obtain it. And then you got Mansour Abdul Malik, who has finished all of 8 fights, 7 KOs, 1 submission, taking on Cody Brundage, 11-6, 3-1-1 in his last five. Cody Brundage has worked really good as of recent. Again, I don't think Brundage is one of these guys that'll, make it to the top of the division. But a fun guy, really has power, really good. Oh, well, I'm not gonna say really good striking, but decent striking. Um, yeah, should be a fun card. Then we got UFC Fight Night Azerbaijan. Finally, hopefully, I'm not gonna cross my fingers. Let's knock on wood right here. We get this fight to happen. This fight was supposed to happen, I believe, before Roundtree even fought Pereira. They booked this right after Hill lost to Pereira. But I think it's an interesting fight. Jamal Hill only losing to Paul Craig by that submission, and Paul Craig managed to sneak wins from a lot of good fighters. And then Pereira getting knocked up by Eatery. Khalil Roundtree, though, was on a 5 fight win streak, I believe. Went into the Pereira fight very underrated. Nobody gave him any chance to win that fight. But he won the first 2 rounds, and it was a matter of his body giving out on him. Then you got Rafael Fiziev taking on Bahamondes Fiziev, losing to Gamrot and Gaethje twice in a row. Uh, Nadia versus Young Park. That's another interesting fight. Park on a good run. Nadia, a really fun fighter. Blades versus Rizvan Kuniev, who is making his debut. Muhammad Usyk versus Adel Wahab. That is a very funny fight to me. I don't know why. I find it hilarious. You got, Usman's brother. You got Adel Wahab, who came back from a drug suspension. Um, Other than that, though, really, Sadikar versus Nicholas Moda is the only other fight that's stood to me. Jamal Hill, though, we know, former champion, coming off of two brutal KOs to uh, two former champions, has been a hilarious troll. You either love Jamal Hill or you hate what he does online. I love it. This guy seems like he is a funny dude, and I would love to meet him in real life. And he's fighting to stand to the top five. You can't be a top five fighter and have three losses in a row to three different opponents. Um, but again, he went into Brazil, ran through Corbin Teixeira, walked him, KO'd Thiago Santos, KO'd Johnny Walker. We'll see. We'll see. And this is a win that Jamal Hill needs. I feel like Jamal Hill needs this win way more than Roundtree needs it. Roundtree, though, you look at him 13-6, coming off of a loss to Pereira, where he did really well in winning the first two rounds of that fight. He's a really good Muay Thai fighter, which played into the Pereira fight. And getting the early title shot could be a blessing for him. It could also be a curse because he knows what it's like to be in there with Pereira. He knows what to expect. And he probably picked up on a few things watching the tape and obviously being in the cage with him. Then we got Rafael Fiziev, 12-4, coming off of two losses to Gaethje. Got KO'd by Matthias again. Well, TKO'd due to a leg injury. Really good striker. And he's gotten a big pushes from the UFC. Kind of like Benoit Saint Denis, I would like them to take their time. Let them, fight people that are around the top 15, around the top 10. Then when he gets one or two wins in the top 10, move him into the top 5, and then give him a title shot. I like Fiziev. He's a really fun fighter. Again, I just feel the UFC, the matchmaking, they push certain guys too fast and they don't push other fighters whatsoever. Um, but he's taking on Ignacio Bahamondes, who's 17-5. And he has been a monster in his last few fights. Three first round finishes, head kick for Crystal Thiago, KO Manel Torres, which is a really good win, and submitted Jalen Turner. And I feel like this last pressure on Bahamondes, he's trying to crack into the top 15, where I feel Fiziev is kind of battling for his chance to stay at the top of lightweight and have the ability to fight a lot of these guys. Again, though, I don't like how we go from number 12 fighter to number 3. Like, it's a big jump, and I only think we should use that for select fighters. Other interesting fights on the card, Ismail Nardiev, 24-7, 3-2 in his last five, taking on Zhang Young Park. Blades versus Ruslan Kuniev, and Muhammad Naimov versus Bogdangrad are some of the fights that interest me here. And I got a picture of Ruslan Kuniev, who went, did really good in Eagle FC. He's got a bunch of finishes. Beat Hugo Kuna in the first round with knee a knee to the body, finish him on the ground. He'll be a very interesting fighter to have in the UFC. Again, we we all have a certain opinion when we see fighters come from Eagle FC or Dagestan. most of us are fed up with it. I want to see, other fighters making it to the top. Why can't we get like more like, I don't know, Syrian fighters? I have no clue. Why does it always have to be Dagestani? Um, while we move on, finally to UFC 317 International Fight Week, June 28th, Elliot Topuria versus Oliveira. We know that when this last peak review decided that Islam will move up, take on JDM. But Topuria versus Oliveira is still interesting. Topuria moving up to 155-16, just knocked out two top 15 fighters of all time, and he's trying to follow the Conor blueprint. Oliveira is trying to reclaim his belt as well. That he lost to Islam Makhachev after really close fight with Arman Sarukian. Apart from that, though, has beaten everybody else. And then you have the landscape of the flyweight division can drastically change depending on what happens in Pantos and Kharkov fronts and the development outcome. Ilya Topuria, the guy who stepped up, who called for International Fight Week, he announced that he was in camp 4 weeks ago. He's chasing legacy over everything else. He doesn't care to defend his title, and I forgot who said this. He probably, I no, it was Lucas Tracy. Shout out Lucas Tracy. He probably won't be the go to one division. He can only go for, you know, the GOAT, when the GOAT period. I don't think he can match what Islam did at lightweight. I think the way he gets there is going to 170 eventually. Um, he has potential to put together the best resume over defending a belt multiple times, and that's really what it comes down to. The money fights are at 155 too. When he had that featherweight belt, he beat Max, he beat Volk. Diego is, it's a big name for the hardcores, not a big name for the casuals. So really, what the money is nowhere near what it is at 155 when you have guys like Gaethje, Oliveira, Sorokin, major names. And then you have to think, when does the 170 conversation start? Is it after one defense, after two defenses, or do you guys force them to kind of go through a bunch of contenders? We'll see. But like I said, like what Lucas Tracy said, Topuria probably cannot become the lightweight goat. He can't. Well, he can't become the featherweight goat now that he lost the division. If he wins that third belt, I it instantly puts him at top three. It instantly puts him at top three, especially if he does against Islam somehow. When we move on to the guy that's trying to prevent that, Charles Oliveira, the former champion, got ran through by Islam, but still, he had one of the most magical and most beloved title runs we have ever seen in the history of the UFC. Lost a narrow decision against Arman Sarukian, which many people thought that Oliveira won that fight. He beat Chandler with ease. The only thing that Chandler really did was those backdrops at the end of the fight, and he is most likely to finish early on the feet. I could see him submitting um Elliot Topuria, but Elliot Topuria is a high level grappler. Out of anybody at lightweight right now, I feel like Oliveira has the best chance to finish him though. Whether it is on the feet, Armand may be able to submit him, maybe, but I think if we do see a finish against Topuria, Oliveira is that guy to me at the moment. Um, it's tough though. These are like two of my favorite fighters. I didn't like Topuria until he knocked out one of my other favorites a minute away, but still, this is a big fight. Then you got Pantoja. He's beaten everyone in his division. making his case for being the flyweight GOAT, which is blasphemy for most people. But you gotta think about it this way. Back in the day, competition was nowhere near what it was. And the flyweights now are way bigger than the flyweights that DJ was fighting. He beat Kaikar France, Brandon Moreno on the Ultimate Fighter. Current number one contender, Brandon Royval, he's beaten twice. 3 wins over the number two contender, Brandon Moreno, and he should be fighting Murad. He has really nothing left to do in the flyweight division. Again, this is a rematch, which Kaikar France has improved greatly. Is a finishing machine. But yeah, the only fight that really stands out where Pantoja didn't look that great was against Steve Erceg, which he still won that fight by unanimous decision. Um, I expected them to announce Morale versus Pantoja. I didn't. Well, I knew they were going to do the Sean rematch at some point, but I was hoping for this. Him versus Pantoja. Then you got Kaikar France 25-11. 12 knockouts at flyweight, which is insane. I'd say 48% knockout rate. Knocked out Steve Erceg in round one, who gave Pantoja a lot of issues, like I mentioned. He lost to Moreno twice, Albazi, and he is a streaky fighter. He'll put together 3 or 4 wins, lose 1 or 2, go on another streak. It's difficult when you've already lost to the champion and you've already seen a champion take out contenders multiple times. And I do favor Pantoja going into this fight. I think that Pantoja probably will beat him by decision once again. But I would have much rather we had Morale versus Pantoja be announced. Other interesting fights on the card. Paulo Costa, 14-4, 1-4 in his last five, though hasn't had the best outings over the last few years. Taking on Roman Koplev, 14-3, 4-1 in his last five. Roman Koplev was really good. Another Russian fighter. Benil Dariush, 22-6, 3-2 in his last five. Booked again against Ronald McConnell. We know that this fight was supposed to happen way back in January, but McConnell had to step up when Sorokin got injured. I like this fight. Benil Dariush, he is older, working on retirement. Ronald McConnell, too, he's still spring chicken. He's looking to rebound again from a devastating loss to Israel Makachev. And then you got Brandon Royval 17-7, 4-1 in his last five, taking on Manel Kopp. This fight was supposed to happen a few months ago. Number one contender, Manel Kopp is on a really good run too. It's gonna be a tricky fight. It's gonna be a really tricky fight. Brandon Royval is much bigger than him, and I feel like Brandon Royval will have the it will Brandon Royval will do better. If it's just a basic kickboxing match. I feel like Manila Koff has more tools to finish the fight, but I think Brandon Royval is the better fighter overall, and will probably get the win by decision. Then we move on to UFC 318 in New Orleans, July 19th. Only fights we have for this card: Oliveira, Poirier, Vittori, Allen, Puget, Duatov, Ribas, Ricci. Aliscal versus Ferreira is a really fun fight. Um, Dustin Poirier fighting for the BMF belt in this last fight. We're probably not going to get any more major fights than the big appeal of this card is Dustin's last fight. He's 2-0 against Max Holloway. If he makes the 3-0 against a top 15 fighter, in my eyes, it'd be a really good way to end his career. Max Holloway is officially moving to not heavyweight. It should be lightweight. I don't know why it says heavyweight. He's officially moving to lightweight following his knockout against Topuria at UFC 308. And he did really good against Gaethje, knocked him out at the very last second. This is a much different fight. We also have more fights to be announced on this card. It won't just be 5 fights. Dustin Poirier, 30-9, one of the greatest lightweights of all time. Belt and destroyed Conor McGregor. Conor Mania started with Poirier. It ended with him breaking Conor's way. Was very close to submitting Khabib. Gave Makhachev a really tough fight. And has a chance to shut out a top 15 fighter of all time. One of the best featherweight champions. Um, you look at him recently though, it has been a win one, lose one. He submitted Chandler. Um, got KO'd by Gaethje, they're 1-1. Then the UFC gave him the BSD, thinking he was done. Gets that knockout. Now, this is how he's retiring. Max Holloway, top 15 fighter ever. I have him in the top 15, probably around 13 or 14. Top 2 featherweight right behind Volkanovski. Arguably beat Volkanovski in the second fight. The first fight was really close. Um, this is a legitimate lightweight run too, and that's something you have to look at. This is a Max Holloway moving up on short notice to lightweight. This is him properly without any worry about featherweight going into these camps and potentially making his run at his second belt and getting that win back over to 40 at 155. The first two fights happened 7 years apart. I believe this fight will be 6 years apart, so anyway, seven. And the last fight was in 2019, before the Volk fights. And I really think the Volkanovski fights changed Max Holloway for the better. Um, and I I I think that Holloway, even though if he wins this, he'll still be down two. It would be a really good start for him in the lightweight division to have wins over two of top five guys, and Poirier and Gaethje. And like I said, you gotta be thinking he didn't expect the Poirier to move up, but he wants that one back. The first fight where he gets knocked out. Then we move on to UFC Fight Night Saudi Arabia, July 26th. Robert Whitaker versus Rene Ritter is the main event. Evil Aswin, Billy Akana, Krylov Gauchkov is interesting. Shah Magomedov versus Marc-Andre Barrier. Marc-Andre Barrier just broke Bruno Silva's skull. And then Almabaya versus Ramazan Tamilov. The fights announced to this card have been excited. RDR just halted one of the UFC's prospects in Bo Nickel. Whitaker's on his last run. I don't know how many fights he'll have. He just lost to Khamzat, lost to DDP. But, we know that Robert Whitaker, kind of like Max Holloway, was the 1B in middleweight for years. And then you have Evil Aston trying to recover from the Kotuava finish. Shara trying to rebound from the disappointing fight with MVP. Robert Whitaker, former middleweight champion, coming off of the submission loss to Khamzat, where Khamzat nearly broke his chin with a face crank, and has only lost to champions and the title contenders. Khamzat's wife, Drika Stuplessis, Israel Adesanya. In his prime, these are the only guys he's losing to. Yes, he lost fights at welterweight before he really went on his main run. But I'm a big Whitaker fan. I want him to rebound. I really want him to win this fight. But he's going in there against Neil Ritter, coming from ONE FC. had a concerning debut against GM3, but in the fights that preceded that, submitted Kevin Owen in the first round. Say what you want about Kevin Owen. Kevin Owen is still a tough fight. Then going in there the other way, KOing Bo Nickel and showing Bo Nickel there are levels to this game as well as the UFC. The American wrestling background doesn't mean shit anymore. American wrestling is it is way outdated. Basic jiu-jitsu defeats American wrestling 9 times out of 10 now. When it comes from a Dutch kickboxing background, he has 14 wins by submission though. He's really good on the ground, really good jiu-jitsu practitioner. And I think that Renier de Ritter, he's right there for getting to that title. And then if DDP is still the champion, I guarantee you they do DDP versus RDR in the Netherlands. They have to. That's the only place, the only place that makes sense. And his only losses in his career are to Anatoly Malikin, the 3 division champion at ONE FC. Well, I think former. I'm pretty sure he lost to one of those belts. And then we move on to UFC 319 Chicago. The only fight that we really have announced for that one. DDP versus Khamzat, the biggest middleweight title fight of all time. Um, a lot of people hate hearing it, but DDP is very close to passing Anderson Silva. When you look at the competition he's facing, it's nowhere near the competition that Silva fought. Sean Strickland he beat by unanimous decision after many people thought he lost the first one. Submitted Israel Adesanya, KO'd Robert Whitaker, and TKO'd Derek Brunson. Undefeated in the UFC, he did lose 2 fights early on in his career. Khamzat Chimaev face cranked Robert Whitaker, so a common opponent for both of them. DDP knocked him out. Whitaker or Chimaev submitted him. Fought Usman on short notice. Again, really close fight. One of the judges even gave it to Usman. Submitted Holland in that very weird card where he was supposed to fight Nate Diaz. Then the moment when everybody's getting pissed off at the company, Chimaev conveniently misses weight, fights Holland. Uh, fought Burns, won by unanimous decision, but Burns gave him a lot of issues in that fight, and then of course submitted uh Jingwang Wei Jingwang, and I'm pretty sure that was one of the fights where like his first 4 fights in the UFC, he absorbed 1 punch or some stupid like that. But this is big. I feel like the winner of this here I feel I'll hold on to the middleweight division for quite some time. Chimaev is the best grappler I've ever seen compete, but DDP's split style I feel will cause him a lot of issues. Very unpredictable style for from DDP. We'll see. Like I have it right here though, this should be the greatest middleweight fight we ever see. And then to end it off, we got JDM versus Israel Makhachev. Not announced yet, but we know it's going to be at Perth, Australia. JDM, I'll start with him first. Just won the belt against Bilal Muhammad in a really good fight. One of the greatest welterweight title fights I've ever seen in my years of watching this sport. He KO'd Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns did give him a lot of issues, but he is able to recover from that, obviously. Just had the performance to win over. Beat Kevin Holland by split decision, beat Basil Hafez. Randy Brown, he submitted in the first round. This is a big fight. It's for Markachev, top 3 fighter of all time, I believe. If he wins the welterweight title and if he defends it once or twice, I would put him ahead of GSP. I would have Islam Makhachev at that top two spot. For JDM though, what better way to start off your title run than to fight the number one pound for pound guy, a top three fighter of all time? Like I said, it's very interesting. It sucks that we lost out on the Topuria fight, but this fight could honestly be better. JDM, the anti grappling that he's been working with Craig Jones, it'll make it'll make this fight very interesting. We'll see Islam fighting at his natural weight, and obviously, it's tough for Islam to, really make a mark when he's in the shadows of Khabib. The way he gets out of Khabib's shadows, winning the 170 belt. And the thing with 170, we have a lot of good contenders, a lot of big contenders that deserve a crack at the title. JDM versus Buckley would be interesting. JDM versus Sean Brady. Depending on how many fights he has at welterweight, it's going to be interesting. But that was the every fight announced for this summer. Man, after months of not really having any direction in the UFC, we have direction. We have all these big fights. Now we're waiting on John Jones versus Tom Aspinall, which will probably be at Madison Square Garden if it happens in November. But I'm excited, man. We got a lot to look forward to. Thanks for watching this video. What do you think about all these fights that are announced right now? What fights would you add to each of these cards? I'm interested to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. Later.